Our first speaker is Peter Levine. Peter is the Associate Dean for Research and the Lincoln Filene Professor of Citizenship and Public Affairs at the Jonathan M. Tisch College of Citizenship and Public Service. Now known, Jonathan M. Tisch College. I know, but I was just like, can I say it? I can say it. We're changing the name, Jonathan M. Tisch College of Civic Life. We're happy to say. I guess at that point I had to say it, sorry. He was the founding deputy director of CIRCLE, which is the Center for Information and Research on Civic Learning and Engagement, which conducts research on civic and political engagement of young Americans. In addition to his research on young Americans, he's explored what can happen when citizens come together with all their differences of opinions intact to address problems and their communities. He's the author of 5 books on philosophy and politics. Most recently, We're the Ones We've Been Waiting For, The Promise of Civic Renewal in America. Regardless of your politics, I think we can all agree that these topics are now more important than ever. So Peter, thank you.
Thank you, David, and thank you all for being here. You heard the word politics, and you might be possibly dreading it a little bit. Images like the following might be coming to your mind. That's the moment on the top left where the closed caption writer for CNN gave up and just wrote unintelligible yelling. And if our campaigns are a mess, so are our political institutions. Just to his right is the moment, top right there is the moment when the Speaker of the House recently resigned, unable to pull together a coalition. Of course, a bipartisan and long-lasting problem there. And when citizens enter the picture, it's often not so great either. The gentleman at the bottom right there is disrupting a so-called town meeting to berate his member of Congress. But even more common is the gentleman on the left who is performing the most common civic act, which is watching it on some kind of screen, the whole sorry spectacle, and getting ready to change the channel. There has to be a different starting place, and at the Tisch College of Civic Life, as we're about to start calling it, we do have a different starting point. We start with citizens. We really have 2 huge functions, and then do other things as well, but one is to help educate all Tufts students in all of our schools and colleges to be effective citizens who can make the world better. And the second is to study that, to study civic engagement in order to help make civic engagement better. And so I'm going to share with you some research findings tonight. And the key word in all that is citizen. So I owe you at least a quick definition of what a good citizen is. And I'm going to say that in all times and all places, ancient Greece, modern India, wherever, a citizen is defined as someone who seriously asks the following 4-word question: what should we do? And it really is the question, what should we do? Because the point is not just to have an opinion or to express yourself, the point is to do something to make the world better. And the question really is, what should we do? Because it's not what should be done. What should somebody else do? What should the government do? It's what should we do? What should we do? And the question is, what should we do? Because it's not just what we want to do or what we would like. It is a serious matter of trying to figure out what's right for us to do. And you won't be surprised that I'm now going to encircle the 4th word. It is what should we do, because there are options out there. There are alternatives. They have costs. They have benefits. They have likelihood of success. And it's our job to try to figure out which one will work and how much it'll cost and what we should do. What we should do. So what we should do is the definition, asking that question is the definition of citizens in all times and all places. But at the Tisch College of Civic Life, we do most of our research on the very contemporary American context, where we have as a people some strengths and some opportunities, but also some weaknesses and some challenges, obviously. And we try to zero in on what we should do as a people today. So I'm going to present a model to you. It has 3 big parts to it. It's pretty simple. One part is a focus on citizens, and it says, what do we need to work on? What do we need to improve? And I'll talk about that a little bit. Second part of the model is, I'm going to argue that if we did that, if we did behave in those ways better, we would actually get a better country, better government, stronger communities, social justice. But then the question is, where are we going to get more good citizens? And so then I'm going to argue we need a special kind of movement for that, a movement that will tackle the obstacles to good citizenship. If we could pull that off, we'd have a virtuous cycle where the movement boosted citizenship, which improved social justice, which fed back to the movement, instead of the vicious cycle we have today. So let's zoom in quickly on what we should do as citizens. And I'd say 3 things. that we have to work on. One, we need to deliberate. We need to talk and listen. We need to talk and listen with people who might be different from ourselves, look different, have different opinions and backgrounds, because that's how we hold ourselves accountable, how we gain something that you might call wisdom, and where we build enough common ground that we can act, enough will that we can act. So deliberation is important, and for various reasons, there's not nearly enough of it. We need to work on it, but it's not sufficient, because the point, again, is not just to discuss and have an opinion, it's to make the world better. It's to work. The root of collaboration is working together, laboring together. We need to work together. As these good people, AmeriCorps volunteers, are doing as they put up that wall, they're working together. But the question I would ask is, did they also get to deliberate? Did they get to decide where that wall went, whether it was a good idea, what to do next? Because so often those who deliberate are separated from those who collaborate and vice versa. We need to pull them together. And the third pillar is relationships. We need to form civic relationships, which have a lot of characteristics we could talk about. But civic relationships are often what bring people into civic life, and they are what people take out of civic life. They are scarce but renewable sources of power and energy for citizens. Now I'd like to talk just briefly about a little bit more detail about how we interact. And this is an opportunity for me to give you an actual working assignment, which they're not going to charge to my 10 minutes, and which you'll get in a moment. But think about it this way. You're going to a meeting, let's say about school affairs in your community, and you have an idea, which is there should be more support for the arts, an idea. And you really have two reasons for that. One, the arts are intrinsically valuable, and two, you believe that if the arts were stronger in the school, community would be more supportive of the school. So you've got three ideas, really, and they're connected. They're linked. You have a little piece of a network made up of ideas and relationships in your head. But of course, and this is a good thing, not a bad thing, everybody else coming to the meeting also has a little network of ideas in their head. Yeah, I thought you'd laugh, but it's also a good thing. This is a diagram of the ideas that my students in an undergraduate class last year at Tufts had. Each student depicted in a different color. Each idea is a dot, and where they come together is the places where they found that they agreed. So here's a quick little assignment for you. Well, first of all, let me say, you can really make a map of your own ideas about big issues, and I actually think that's a good exercise to do, and I assign it to you to do tonight. But here's a quick little exercise to do right here. 3 instructions to follow. Pay attention. These are the instructions. First of all, I want you to speak briefly to someone right next to you, either behind or in front or right next to you. Pick someone you don't know, because we're trying to build civic relationships. Introduce yourself quickly. You can, if you both have a, wait, well, all right. Good job. All right, you've done that. Good job. Listen for the second instruction. Thank you. Good job. You are very good at civic relationships. I'm going to give you the other 2 instructions together. Don't start till I'm done. All right? The second instruction is each of you shares with the other person quickly an idea that you're actually advocating at some point in recent months in your life, in your community, in your family, at your work, about what we should do. So each one quickly shares what they advocated, like I was advocating for more funding for arts in my school. And then the third assignment is you quickly try to see if you can come up with another idea that would link those 2, even though they may be quite disparate ideas. I'm going to give you about, at maximum, 5 minutes, and then I'm going to start jumping up and down, probably about 4 minutes, and then I'm going to start jumping up and down on the stage. I'm not sure if I fully anticipated your enthusiasm for this. So I'm going to interrupt you. Raise your hand if you got to express your idea that you'd been advocating. Quite a few people did not quite get through the assignment, so you get docked for that. Raise your hand if you were actually able to get to a third idea that linked the 2. Good work. All right. This is why my colleagues and I are interested in this idea of mapping your networks, your ideas as networks. Because I think some people are better at interacting with other people than others are. We could all get better. And some of it has to do with the way we organize our networks. So consider this person. Those are her ideas and the relationships she forms among her ideas. It's pretty good, but the problem she's got is that she hasn't connected a lot of her ideas. So it's really hard to reason with her because she says something and she doesn't have anything to connect it to. But this guy is the opposite problem. Everything he says connects back to one thing that he holds to be absolutely, so you're familiar with that problem, right? This is better. She's got 3 big ideas, and some things are more important than others, so they should be more important, but you can also talk around the points that she holds most important. She has other ways to connect to you. And of course the point, so she's interactive. So the point is to bring people into conversation. Not that they will agree. Consensus isn't possible, and it's maybe not even desirable, but they will begin to connect and be able to find common ground and do things together. And that happens it's more likely to happen if you do deliberate, collaborate, and form civic relationships with other people. So one of the things you get out of citizenship is actually an improvement in your thinking, in your mind. You could even say in your soul, to be very highfalutin about it. But actually that won't cut it because that's not good enough for busy policymakers with limited resources to say that this is good for their soul. So a lot of our work is about showing that it's actually good for concrete practical benefits. And so under the heading of benefits for engagement, I would basically describe 2 buckets. And these are 2 things we study intensively with lots of research projects. One are the benefits for individuals. Lots of research shows that whether you're in 6th grade or 75, you're better off if you're engaged in civic life. You're better off psychologically and in terms of your economic outcomes. This is just a concrete example. This is a friend of ours and a colleague, Eli Flores. He was a high school dropout and on a bad course living in East LA. He ended up in the great program called Youth Build USA, which explicitly is about deliberation, collaboration, and civic relationships. Now he's a civic leader, a pillar of his community, and a colleague of ours. We did a research study with him. So for many people like Eli Flores, civic engagement is a path to a better life for them. It's also better for whole communities. So this is just one little slide from a large research report, but we looked at whether states and also cities where people were more civically engaged weathered the recession of 2008, 2009 better than other states. So we measured things like those, doing favors, talking with neighbors, attending meetings, volunteering, a bunch more measures, basically measures of collaboration, deliberation, and civic relationships. And we found that the states and cities where that was more common recovered much better from the recession than their peer states. So civic engagement is good for people, it's good for communities, but how are we going to get more of it? Tough question because schools, universities, the media, governments, foundations are not terribly well set up to support it or to acknowledge it, and they're not going to change on their own, not anytime soon. So we do need something like a movement to change those institutions to make civic engagement more possible. Movements are hard to start. Everybody wants to have a movement. And this is a tough one to get started because it's pretty abstract. I think if we went out onto Boston Common tonight and asked people, would you like to join a movement for civic renewal, they would look at us funny. Not because there's anything wrong with them, but because it's a hard thing to know what they would be doing, right? Because they don't have that much experience with it. But here's where I argue we have an overlooked asset in America. An asset of 1 million citizens. And these are people I find in my own work who do demanding, sophisticated civic engagement. These are not people who go to a meeting. These are people who organize a meeting and make sure it works. These are not people who volunteer, which would be much more common. These are people who organize a volunteering program. These are certainly not people who just vote. They're people who organize a voter education program. They work in fields like this. And what defines them for my purposes is that they know in their bones the importance of civic engagement and all the many obstacles that stand in its way. So they are motivated to change the world to make civic engagement happen. Problem is, they're not aware of each other. They're not self-conscious of themselves as a movement. They're not sharing ideas across silos. So at the Tisch College of Civic Life, we see ourselves playing a role in this, in getting a movement started. First of all, again, by educating tough students to be active citizens in various ways and to be part of this kind of movement. And secondly, by trying to understand the complexities of the problem and solutions so that we as a people can make progress.